They laughed at her like she was nothing. They mocked her accent, her clothes, her silence. What they didn't know was that the entire building they were standing in already belonged to her. And tonight, one whisper was about to destroy everything. The moment I stepped into the ballroom, I heard it. Not loud, not meant for me, but sharp enough to cut. "Oh, great," she whispered, tilting her champagne glass just slightly. "The stinky country girl is here." Soft laughter followed. Polite, practiced, cruel. I didn't need to look to know who said it. Sloane Whitmore, my brother's flawless fiancée. The kind of woman who never spilled a drink, never raised her voice, and never missed a chance to remind people exactly where she stood in the social hierarchy. And I stood nowhere. I paused just inside the entrance of the Monarch Hotel ballroom. Crystal chandeliers glowed above. Italian marble chilled the soles of my boots. Silk dresses brushed past me like I didn't exist. I let them. I wore a beige cardigan over a simple blouse. Nothing flashy. My light caramel brown hair fell long and wavy down my back. Soft but unbothered. Minimal makeup, clean face. Hazel eyes watching everything. Sloane didn't even glance at me. To her, I was an inconvenience, a smudge on her perfect engagement party, something embarrassing that crawled in from a small town to ruin the aesthetic. What she didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that 3 years ago, I signed the deed to this hotel. Every chandelier, every glass in her hand. I hadn't even finished my drink when I felt it. That familiar tightening in my chest. The instinct that told me my mother was near. Patricia Burns approached the way she always did. Slow, controlled, already disappointed. Her smile was polite, but her eyes swept over me like they were searching for something wrong. They didn't have to look hard. Her gaze stopped at my cardigan, then my boots. "Well," she said, her tone light but sharp around the edges, "it's nice you could make it. Nice the way people say it when they don't mean it." She glanced around the ballroom, lowering her voice. "You really couldn't have worn something more appropriate. Sloane's family is very refined." She lingered on the word like it was a lesson I'd failed to learn. I told her I'd come straight from work, that I didn't have time to change. Which was true. I just didn't mention that work meant running the hotel she was standing in. She sighed, the same sigh I'd heard my entire childhood, the one that carried disappointment, tolerance, and the unspoken hope that maybe one day I'd be less of a problem. "Try not to embarrass anyone," she added, already turning away. And just like that, she was gone. 20 seconds. That's all it took to make me feel 12 years old again. I stood there, steady, letting the feeling pass. I'd learned not to react. Reactions gave people power. Silence took it away. Across the room, Sloane moved like she owned the place, air-kissing guests, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, performing perfection. Her parents hovered nearby. Franklin Whitmore was big, red-faced, confident in a way that felt rehearsed. Delilah Whitmore glittered beside him, thin fingers heavy with jewelry that caught the light every time she moved. They looked wealthy, but something was off. I needed air. Not because I was going to cry, I was long past that, but because staying in that room suddenly felt dangerous, like standing too close to a fault line right before it split. I moved toward the hallway near the restrooms, letting the music and laughter dull behind me. The bass from the speakers rattled the walls, too loud, too aggressive. It felt like noise meant to drown out thought. That's when I heard a voice, low, urgent. Franklin Whitmore. I slowed without turning my head, instincts sharp now. He stood a few feet ahead of me, half hidden near the service corridor, his phone pressed tight to his ear. His confident posture was gone. His shoulders were tense, his jaw clenched. "We just need this wedding to happen," he said quietly. "After that, everything settles." He paused, listening. "Yes, the Burns family has money," he continued. "Enough to cover us. We just have to get through tonight." My steps stopped. "Money?" Franklin exhaled sharply. I know, just trust me." Then the line went dead. He straightened instantly, confidence sliding back into place like a mask. When he turned, I stepped aside, pretending to check my phone. He passed without noticing me, already smiling again, already transformed. I stood there, frozen. The Burns family has money. No, we didn't. My parents lived comfortably, but I knew the truth. I knew about the second mortgage, the unpaid bills, the medical expenses. I knew because I'd been quietly taking care of them for years, and no one knew that but me. So how did he? I returned to the ballroom with new eyes. I didn't plan to confront her. Not yet. But Sloane found me anyway. She appeared at my side near the hallway, perfectly timed, like she'd been waiting for the right moment. Her hand slipped around my arm, light but possessive, her smile warm enough for anyone watching. "Bethany, right?" she said sweetly. "We should really talk, just us." It wasn't a question. She guided me toward the quiet corner near the restrooms. The music faded, the laughter dulled, and the moment we were out of sight, her smile vanished. Just like that. "You know," she said, folding her arms, eyes sharp now, "I've been curious about you." I stayed quiet. She tilted her head, studying me. "Sending money home every month, playing the generous daughter from a distance. It's interesting." My pulse didn't change. She smiled again, but this time it was cruel. "What I don't understand is why someone who could barely afford their own life would waste money on people who clearly never valued her." She leaned closer. "Unless," she said softly, "you were trying to buy their love." I met her gaze, calm, unmoved. She laughed under her breath. Pathetic, really. Then she dropped her voice even lower. "Garrett told me everything. How jealous you were, how you never handled not being the favorite, how the family only tolerates you out of obligation." That one landed, not because it was true, but because it meant he'd talked about me. I said nothing. Sloane straightened, smoothing her dress. I sat alone in my car in the parking garage, the folder resting on my lap like it weighed 100 pounds. The concrete walls felt too close. The overhead lights flickered, humming softly. For the first time that night, I let myself breathe. Fraud. Multiple states. Fake identities. The Whitmores weren't just opportunists, they were professionals. This wedding wasn't about love or family or new beginnings. It was an exit strategy, a way to attach themselves to a family they believed had money, stability, protection. And my brother was the key. I stared at the documents until the words blurred. Part of me wanted to walk away, let it collapse, let my parents face the consequences of their choices, let Garrett learn the hard way what happens when you ignore the people who actually see you. I had every reason to. My mother had given away my grandmother's necklace without hesitation. My brother had talked about me behind my back instead of standing up for me. They had spent years treating me like an afterthought. And still, they were my family. Garrett was still the boy who taught me how to ride a bike, running behind me until I stopped wobbling. My mother was still the woman who stayed up all night when I was sick, even if she forgot that version of herself later. Family was complicated like that. You could be furious with them and still want to protect them. I pulled out my phone. First call, my lawyer. Rebecca answered immediately, calm and sharp as always. The ballroom was loud again when I walked back in. Music pulsed, glasses clinked, laughter floated through the air like nothing in the world was wrong. That was the thing about lies. They always sounded happiest right before they collapsed. Franklin Whitmore stood near the stage, straightening his tie, preparing for his toast. Confident, smiling, a man who believed the night was still his. My phone buzzed once in my hand. Rebecca. Confirmed. Federal investigation active. Agents are on standby. I slipped the phone into my pocket. Wesley met my eyes from across the room, calm, ready. I handed him the USB drive without a word. He gave a small nod and disappeared toward the control room. Franklin stepped onto the stage. The DJ lowered the music. Guests turned, champagne raised, waiting for the speech that would seal the evening. Franklin smiled broadly. "Good evening, everyone," he began. He talked about love, about family, about legacy, about how honored the Whitmores were to be joining the Burns family. Every word was polished. Every word was a lie. "To the happy couple," he said, lifting his glass. "To love, to family, to forever." The screens behind him flickered. The smiling photos vanished. In their place appeared a court document, official, stamped, cold. A murmur rippled through the room. Franklin's smile froze. The screen changed again. Financial records, news headlines, fraud investigations, then photos, older ones, of Sloan under another name, Sandra Williams. The room went silent. Garrett turned slowly toward Sloan. Her face had drained of color. The champagne glass